Hey guys, Aaron here for Movie Battleground. This is a little bit of a different angle than normal, but just decided to upload a quick intro from my phone rather than setting up the camera and doing everything there. Just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up and a preface, I guess. This match is going to be a little rocky at the start. To kind of explain, I was recording this match around the same time, unknowingly to myself, that my internet provider at the time, since I have since switched, had a complete and utter crash. So you will notice that there is a little bit of choppy editing at the start of this match, and there's a segment, I believe at the end of round 1 or round 2, where an entire, 20 seconds of the video is gone. It just kind of jumps, and that's all because of the internet while we were recording. Unfortunately, when we were recording this match, already got delayed 1 or 2 times, so it kind of hit a point where we just had to fight through and get it done, because we didn't want to delay it again for scheduling issues. So yeah, just be aware this is a little bit choppier than normal. Thankfully, beginning with this match, I'm actually working off a new and improved editing system, so dealing with those choppy edits was much easier than it would have been previously, as my light has a seizure behind me. But yeah, just to warn you guys, the beginning of this match is going to look a little choppy. There's going to be a couple of weird cuts and stuff, but just be aware that the match is still an entertaining ride, and I hope you guys stick through to the end. All right, enjoy, guys. Name is Aaron Canola, and my mic was fucking muted. Let's try that again. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Movie Battleground. My name is Aaron Canola, and we are off to a great start here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But we have a fun match ahead of you guys. Last week, we began the Movie Battleground tournaments. We had both of the first matches in each of our brackets go up in Jake versus Andy and Joe versus Kevin. No spoilers for either of those. Until the end of the match, technically Jake versus Andy will be spoiled because the winner of this match will play the winner of that match, and they will get to find out who, if they don't already know based on what they've heard or what they've seen, or I don't know, Matt just tends to show up for things from time to time without telling anybody, so maybe he was there and I just didn't notice. But they will be playing the winner. But tonight's not about Jake or Andy or Joe or Kevin. Tonight is about JD Domash and Matt Beer, 2 competitors who got off to not the best start in their first match with that loss, hoping to come back and pick up a win. JD was a rookie who got to take on a fellow rookie in the form of Tyler Birch, and that match didn't quite go his way in the end, though it was a very split voting a lot of the rounds, so it definitely, he was in the fight, it just quite didn't finish his way. Matt, meanwhile, was a trooper. He stepped in as a last-minute replacement for a competitor who had to drop in our initial first round. He took on veteran player Madi Raymond, and despite the fact that I was able to torture him with Rob Zombie, he was not able to come out with the victory. So at the end of the day, it was not worth it for him. Both of these competitors are obviously looking to get their first wins as well as move on to the next round of Movie Battleground. But with that said, we're not going to kill any more time. Let's just go ahead and bring them on. First, I will introduce, with a record of 0-1, because I have banners now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matt Beer. How's it going?
Pretty good. I appreciate you having a practice for me before I take on Andy or, whatever the guy's name is.
Oh, wow.
I do appreciate that.
That was mean. Jesus Christ.
It's not as mean as that AMC Dine-In shirt you're wearing right there. That's really clean, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I was hoping the terrible lighting would cover that, but hey, it is what it is.
There.
Matt, how are you doing today, man? You're back. Obviously, that first match, we all know that you were a trooper. You stepped in at the last minute. You didn't have nearly as much prep time as Madi did for that match, and you gave it your all, but it did not go your way, as I think many would expect it in that situation. But now, with this match, you've had the time and prep. You were here from the get-go. You were intended to play JD. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. I feel pretty good about myself. Very sad. My team lost today, which is unfortunate, but hey, I have a chance to avenge them in this practice round.
Absolutely. I hope the Thursday night that this goes up on the Colts
Yeah.
play and win, because that will just be
I
the
hope so.
ultimate irony, wouldn't it?
Yeah, please just upload it on November 4th.
November 4th.
Yeah, that's when they play on Thursday night. They should win that game.
Why do you know that so quickly? All right, I'm going to send you to the back.
Look at that.
And we're going to bring in your opponent. Also, with a record of 0-1, he is Mr. JD Domash. JD, how's it going?
Going all right. Going all right.
All right. So as I said, in your first match with Tyler, as with many of the other rookies, you guys are coming in here kind of figuring out the terrain. You definitely gave it your best shot there, and you on a lot of those questions, you definitely swaying people to your side, even if it didn't end your way in victory. How are you feeling taking all of that kind of into your second match?
Well, if last time I over-prepared, this time I under-prepared. Let's see if that works better.
Hey, it's a bold strategy. We've seen both work. It all just depends on the match, but I appreciate the you can't say that you didn't learn from your first match. If you felt over-prepared last time, then under-prepared means you're learning something, and we'll see how it does go as we'll bring in Matt, and we will go over the rules of how the game works. Movie Battleground is a debate show. It is a debate show about movies. It is a best of 5 rounds. The first player to 3 points wins the game. Each round is worth 1 point. If a competitor does happen to win 3 points in a row, that is a knockout. If we happen to have a 2-2 tie after the first 4 rounds, that activates the blind round, but we'll get there if we have to get there. In the regular debate, rounds 1 through 4, the competitors were given the questions well in advance. They were given prep time to prepare. And the debates happen in 4 stages. In stage 1, they will make a 60-second opening argument. In stage 2, they will have a 2-minute solo follow-up pitch. In stage 3, there will be 4 minutes of open debate. This is where you scratch, claw, fight back and forth, and get as much in as you can. And then in stage 4 of the debate, you guys will have 60 seconds to close it out and wrap up your arguments. At the end of each round, I am not alone in tonight's endeavor. I am joined by 2 great judges backstage in the form of Chadwick Webb and Haven Pendergast. They will join me on screen, at which point we will make the decision on who we believe won that fight based off the arguments given. With that said, do either of you gentlemen have any questions?
Nope.
All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and get into question number 1 of this match. And unfortunately, Matt, this match will not be coming out on November 12th, is it? I think you said, or November 4th? Excuse me, November 4th is what you said.
Yes.
This match won't be coming out on November 4th because it'll instead be coming out in October. Around the same time that the latest Ben Affleck and Matt Damon endeavor, The Last Duel, releases. And it is because of that the question was decided. Are you guys hearing me, or am I cutting? Because my video is cutting, but how's my audio?
I hear ya, but it is definitely choppy.
Yeah, it's choppy here and there. Like certain things come in completely clear, and then like other words don't.
Yeah.
For the love of. All right. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move into question number 1 of tonight's debate. And that question is in relation to the upcoming or recently released, I can't remember what exact day this goes up on, film, The Last Duel, in which Ben Affleck and Matt Damon re-teamed to actually write a script once again. Because, it's debatable whether or not they wrote Good Will Hunting. Not that it really affects the fact that it's a great film, but it is debatable. But this time they actually supposedly really wrote a script together, and it's directed by Ridley Scott, and they're both in the film. And with that said, question number 1 is going to focus on the affiest of Flex. The question is, what is the best Ben Affleck movie released within the 1990s? And some of you are instinctively thinking, wow, he just made a bunch of references that seem like they're going to lead to one of the picks. And you'd be fucking right. We'll see which one has it. But with that said, JD, as the person who came in as the favorite in this match, you are the person who got to select which questions you go first on. You elected to go first on questions 2 and 4. which means Matt will be the person going first on this question. And as I go ahead and pull the timer up, Matt, your 1 minute will start when you begin speaking.
Okay, so there is only one movie that was released in the 90s that would fit this question. What is the best Ben Affleck movie released in the 90s? And that, my friends, is Good Will Hunting. This movie is absolutely wonderful. It's beautifully written. Robin Williams gives a powerhouse performance in this movie. I mean, the monologue he has with Matt Damon when they're sitting on the bench is not just the best scene of that movie. It's one of the best monologues ever written. I'm going to yield my time, but my answer is Good Will Hunting.
All right, he yields the time. I'll go ahead and pull the timer back up and skip ahead for JD. All right, I can pause it again if you would like, but when it rolls around, you can begin speaking.
All right. Well, Matt is wrong. There is actually another film that qualifies as Ben Affleck's best movie released in the 90s, and that would be Richard Linklater's breakout, Dazed and Confused. Yes, that's right. I can feel sweet emotion coming from me right now as I just think about this perfect portrayal of high school. I think very few movies accurately portray high school as this movie does. We see Ben Affleck very early on in his career portraying a role that he doesn't really do that much since, which is he plays an antagonist. He plays a real douchebag, and he's actually really good at it. Like, I really wish that we got another movie where he played an antagonist. I really want to see Ben Affleck as a villain of some kind. I'm going to yield the rest of my time, but this is by far his best movie in the 90s.
All right, no problem with that. All right, guys, we are back. As you can see, the screen looks a little different from how it looked beforehand. After about 20 minutes of technical issues, Mr. West here is doing me the favor of taking over as a host because things are absolutely broken on my end. We also have a third judge joining us in the back in the form of Stacy, who will be helping take over as the third judge, and we will be picking it up from here. With that said, Papa, thank you for saving the child. Please continue.
All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and do the intro that I was planning on doing because it will be a lot funnier than what Aaron just did.
Yeah,
welcome back. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I am not Aaron Knoll. I know I look so much better than him, so you're like, Aaron, Papa's here, everybody. Aaron had some trouble, and he asked his Papa to save the day. Just to let you know, Papa's always here to save the day. But really, everything from the video is going to stay the same. We're not starting over because fuck that. I have stuff I have to do. I'm kidding. I'm alone. I have nothing I need to do. We are still on question number 1. We heard the openings. Now we are moving on to the 2-minute debate section. Matt, since you have started us off so far, you're going to start us off. You have 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Okay, so JD, I do find it weird you went with Dazed and Confused as the best movie Ben Affleck was in. I mean, he was in better comedies in the 90s. You know, he was in Mallrats, Dogma, Armageddon. I mean, he was just in better comedies. Dazed and Confused is fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fine stoner comedy. You know, you'd smoke and, you know, have a good time, whatever. But it's nothing special, really. I mean, Affleck's fine in the movie. I mean, I know you said he was great, but he's fine in the movie. And really, you take away Matthew McConaughey from that movie, it's just like a throwaway comedy. It's not something that a lot of people are really, you know, going to remember, you know, after seeing it, you know, because a lot of the people that are watching are stoners, so they're forgetting it by that point. But with Good Will Hunting, you got an incredibly written script. You got incredible performances throughout. I mean, you got the iconic, how about them apples? in the movie. There's so many iconic things in the movie. The "No You're Not," or not the "No You're Not." Sorry, the monologue, spectacular that Robin Williams gives. He's a powerhouse performer in the movie. Really solidified him as like an incredible dramatic actor. How you like them apples is always going to be a beloved line. I'm going to yield the rest of my time. I want to see JD talk.
Okay, Matt, with 40 seconds left on the clock, chose not to use any of that. JD, 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Funny that you started by attacking my movie. I didn't know this was the open debate round. That being said, I disagree with you. I think you're misinterpreting the question. It's the best Ben Affleck movie released in the 90s. It's not what had his best performance. So that being said, I really love how it portrays high school Dazed and Confused. There's it shows the brutalness of high school. Yet at the same time, it's not cynical. It plays it very banal. Like, take, for example, the character of Mitch. His sister prays, there's a hazing day on the last day of school. The sister, hopes and, goes to the bully and say, hey, take it easy on him. And he's public enemy number one. Yet right after, he takes that beating, right the next second, Pink takes him under his wing, trades experiences about his hazing day when he gets into high school. And, by the end had a really great time. And there's a reason that we look at high school with rose-tinted glasses, because there's a real innocence to that time. There's a real, it's the last time there's really any innocence in your life. College, even, you're prepping to be an adult at this point. I really love how that is portrayed. And as I said, I just generally think that Ben Affleck played a role that he doesn't generally play since. And yeah, this is the best Ben Affleck movie. I'm going to cede the rest of my time if that wasn't clear.
That was not clear. After you said it, that made it clear. Thank you, JD. Just in the future, if you want to cede the rest of your time, all you have to do is say so. Matt, you did a fantastic job of it.
Thank you.
JD, you did an all right job of it. But with that, I have no idea what you just said, but okay.
I think we're good. My dogs are... Nope, of course, that one freaks out. Yeah, dogs are freaking out upstairs right now. Somebody is either home or I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. Well, dogs are freaking out. I'm freaking out. I'm actually not freaking out. We have 4 minutes. This is the free-form debate where y'all can yell at each other, talk to each other. I don't really care what you do. Just please do not talk over each other and let each other talk. 4 minutes on the clock. Time starts when one of you starts.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Sure. Thank you very much for doing that. So, look, I mean, yeah, Ben Affleck played an antagonist in the movie, but I thought he was fine in the film. And you're right. It's not best Ben Affleck performance. It's best movie with Ben Affleck in it. And look, that answers Good Will Hunting. I mean, look at all the awards this movie has won. I mean, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote this movie and wrote it absolutely perfectly. You have
I disagree. I disagree with you right there. That is one thing I totally disagree with you. This is their first script that they ever did together, and it definitely shows. Like, there are scenes that you can see the screenplay writing 101 at work. You can see the screenplay writer at the thing. There are certain scenes for example, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like this movie. So I find, for example, Matt Damon completely unsympathetic. He's an unsympathetic character. The opening scene really turned me against him when he goes for all in an eye with that former bully of his. And I generally, I could see oh, he's getting unsympathetic, the screenplay writer. Oh, he's unsympathetic. Let's give him a therapist so they have a buddy relationship. oh, he's getting unsympathetic again. Oh, let's get him a love interest played by Minnie Driver, which I'll grant you. I'm not going to say anything bad about Robin Williams. I'm not going to say anything bad about Minnie Driver. But I was never, I find every other character unsympathetic, and it was never able to get me on its side.
So we're not supposed to at first find Matt Damon sympathetic. You know, he gets to earn it as the movie progresses. And I'm sorry, I don't think somebody who is a first time screenwriter could write something as good as the monologue we see with Robin Williams and Matt Damon sitting on the bench and Robin Williams explaining life and saying, "Look, kid, you read life, I lived it." It's not your fault scene is powerful. Just great acting from both Robin Williams and Matt Damon in that movie. It truly hits hard. This movie, yeah, maybe we don't like Matt Damon at first, but we learn to like him. He progresses, and we do like him by the end of the movie.
I will grant you that they show potential. They show potential, but again, I still, that's not what I'm arguing. I see the potential of their future, but as I said, I just disagree, and I also disagree with that. They don't earn it. They don't earn it for me. This is, film is subjective. I don't think they did enough to earn it. I know, for example, the Ben Affleck character, again, seeing screenplaying at work, the whole function of him is, is his whole function in that movie is to be, is that last scene where has the monologue of, I just hope you're not on my door one day. That's the whole point. The rest of that role is completely banal. Again, to try to win sympathy for Matt Damon. I just don't think it reaches really the heights of Dazed and Confused.
Just the stoner comedy. It's nothing special at all. There's a minute left. That's why I'm stepping in. That way I can have some time to talk to you, unlike Tyler. Dazed and Confused, like I said, it's a fine little comedy. It's fine, but really, like I said, take Matt Damon or Matthew McConaughey out of the movie. This movie really, it's just an average comedy at best. There's so many more, comedies that were released in the 90s. It's better. Also, Dogma, Mallrats, all better than Dazed and Confused. That all feature Ben Affleck.
Time. And as you can see, I am doing time with my hands and my phone. Because if you can count on Papa for two things. One, he'll always save you whenever your internet's crashing or you're in a bad situation. But number two, he has crappy electronics and cannot get the actual clock to work right. Thankfully, I have a phone which has a clock timer on it that works well. So with that, we are moving on to our 1 minute close. Matt, this is you are starting us off. 1 minute to finish up your argument. Time starts when you start.
So to wrap things up, when it comes to what is the best Ben Affleck movie, it's clearly Good Will Hunting. Is Ben Affleck a huge presence in the movie? No, but that's not the question. The question's what's the best movie? Incredible script. The music, the score is absolutely wonderful in Good Will Hunting. You got incredible performances throughout the entire movie. Matt Damon goes on a journey. He starts out by being somebody you don't really like, and then he ends by being somebody you can sympathize with and like. Robin Williams absolutely earned that Oscar. Incredible powerhouse performance. Ben Affleck, good in the movie too. Dazed and Confused, it's just a stoner comedy at the end of the day. It's nothing special. Doesn't really add anything to the comedy genre. There was better comedies that Ben Affleck could have been in, like Dogma, Armageddon, Mallrats. There's other movies too.
Film, I guess my closing is, film is subjective. You may think that Mallrats or Dogma, a couple of those that you mentioned weren't even in the 90s, but I'll let that go. That being said, I disagree with you that it's a fine comedy. I think it's a brilliant coming-of-age story. I think there are great character dynamics like Pink and Mitch. Fred Barron is an antagonist. I just think I find him a very menacing character, but he's also, they try to find some sympathy with him too, saying that, that's a guy that you want on your side in high school. I generally disagree with the argument that it's a fine comedy. It is a brilliant coming of age story.
And time. All right, so I'm going to kick Matt and JD out. Fantastic job, both of you, by the way. I'm kidding. I actually have no idea how that opening went, so I feel I cannot fairly judge any of that. 3 people who hopefully can judge it better than me. Chad, Ladon Blanche, also known as Haven, and then a newcomer, Stacy. Stacy, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. So with that, judges, I'll give you a little bit of time to think of who you want to give it to. Just some facts. I don't remember all the movies that Matt mentioned, but I remember Dogma was one of them, talking about Ben Affleck movies that are stoner comedies. Came out in 1999. JD said that wasn't a 90s film. It is. JD also said film is subjective. Film is not subjective. Film is film. Movies are subjective. Comedies are subjective. But film is a platform, usually with 2 reels, and then the film going through it, shining a big projector and a huge screen. But you don't want to hear me rant on what film is. We want to hear who's getting the points and why. Chad, we are going to you first.
I absolutely love both of these movies so much. I feel like they both did a not that great a job of shooting each other's down, but they both did a good job of talking each other's up. I think so I'm going to go with Matt on this one. And the reason why is because I feel like he sold me on the movie more. And JD, I think he said something about the Ben Affleck scene being good, but then also Matt kind of was talking his movie up, saying that Ben actually wrote it and was great in it, and he was talking about the performances from Robin Williams and all this stuff, and I just feel like JD didn't really sell me on his movie as much, so I have to go with Matt.
All right, so Chad giving the first point to Matt. Haven, you are up next. Who gets your vote and why?
I have to agree with Chad, man. They both made okay points. But Matt, really defended his movie a lot better than JD did. JD just kept talking about his feelings for the movie. I mean, if we never watched that movie, it didn't really sell me on why that movie was so great. And JD just didn't point out that the question was, what's the best Ben Affleck movie? And if JD would have just put the hammer on the nail, saying like, "Hey, man, this, Matt Damon. Nobody thinks of Ben Affleck when they think of Good Will Hunting," but he never did. So I got to give it to Matt.
All right. So with that, Matt gets the first point. Stacy, we're not going to hear from you this round, but please stay with us because you will get to talk in the next round. I can promise you that. I will go ahead and kick all 3 of y'all back again and get our 2 competitors. Real quick, Matt, I do want to ask you a question. Do you like apples? Because you just got that point. How do you like them apples?
Pretty good.
I'm not going to show my biasness, but Good Will Hunting is one of my favorite movies, and that is the best line in any movie, where Matt Damon's like, "I got her number. How do you like them apples?" But this ticker is saying it. Matt gets the first point. It is currently 1-0. As we move on,
real quick, the ticker also resembles my current record, too. 0-1.
Yes, it does. It also shows JD's record and my record. So it is a very smart ticker.
Yes.
Way to go, ticker. I guarantee you two of those will change today. One of those will change at a future date that has not yet been determined. So with that, we're going to move on to question number 2. And if you know anything about Papa West, it's that he is a big Star Wars fan. That's just a little flex right there, because this question has nothing to do with Star Wars, but everything to do with the not as good franchise of the stars, Star Trek. Question is, what is the best... That question is misspelled. What is the best Star Trek film of the original series of films? So with that, JD, we are going to start off with you. 1 minute to open up your argument. Time starts when you start.
So I'm going to be honest. I'm an outsider when it came to Star Trek, but so I watched most of the original series for the first time over the summer, and I was getting tired of the boring existential and eternal crises of the crew that like the first three movies were all about. And honestly, I wasn't really sure if Star Trek was for me. But then there were two words, a phrase really, that changed my opinion of what a Star Trek film could be forever. And that is humpback whales. That's right. I am going with Star Trek, The Voyage Home, which actually had its 35th anniversary this year. I just think it showed what, that Star Trek was more than just internal or external crises, brooding and dark.
Time. All right. Judges, I do want to preface real quick. His answer is not Star Trek The Voyage Home. It is Star Trek 4. From what I know about trivia, it is important to put the numbers in there. Debate, I really don't know, but it really does not matter. Matt, it is your turn. 1 minute to open this up.
Okay, so I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't give a fuck about Star Trek. I really don't. I didn't really like, a lot of Star Trek, but I'll say one thing. There was one movie, kind of like you, that made me go, okay, I kind of like Star Trek in this capacity, and that is Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, or some would call it Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. This movie is absolutely wonderful. A perfect villain in this movie, in Khan, which is perfectly performed by Ricardo Montalban, or however you say his last name, Bon, whatever. Has great action in the movie. You have an incredible, iconic moment in the movie where Spock dies. Spoilers for that movie. And, you have James T. Kirk yell, Spock out loud. And it's an iconic moment. Not only is this the best Star Trek movie, period, it is also one of the great sci-fi movies ever made. And I'm going to yield my time.
Thank you for yielding your time. Also, thank you for adding the two the second time you said the film. Y'all cannot see it because my camera was off, but I had a little mental breakdown whenever you just said Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. So with that, JD, we are now moving on to your 2 minute section. 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Well, first off, I didn't know that I had to be particular. I had to add the 4. I'm sorry, Papa West. That being said, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, what I really love about this movie is kind of the world building that I don't think a lot of the other films really had. First off, you get to see the inner workings of Starfleet, like the how, if you get in trouble with a kind of trial. I really liked that. But then also, boldly going where no man has ever gone before. That's when I've heard an outsider, that's what I thought of. Like, one of the first things that comes to mind when it comes to Star Trek for me, as an outsider, one of the things I know. And just, going back in time and seeing, going back in time and what that opens up, like seeing Kirk in 20th century San Francisco, in a frisk shop, trying to get money. I didn't think I thought would find that intriguing, but also just the Catherine Hicks, who plays Dr. Gillian Taylor. When she finally discovers the Enterprise and the wonder in her eye, that's really, to me, what I really love about Star Trek. And this film portrays that perfectly. The character dynamics, seeing, everybody in an outside area. I just really, really love this movie. I cede the rest of my time.
Thank you so much, JD. Bold strategy, using your first 8 seconds to apologize to me. Let's see how that pays off for you. But with that, Matt, 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
So there we go. You see, I muted my mic so I didn't interrupt on accident, whether it was dogs barking or my chair moving. You can count that against my time. So Star Trek. Around the time when the Wrath of Khan came out, we were in a situation where you had to have a good movie with Star Trek. The Wrath of Khan had to be good. It had to deliver, because if it didn't, Star Trek was probably going to be gone. The first movie, yeah, you have its fans with the people that like the original series, but really outside of that, it wasn't something that a lot of people liked. It's Star Wars as it should be. But not a lot of people really enjoyed Star Trek, right? The series ended after, I believe, 2, maybe 3 seasons, if I'm being generous with that. But really, it was like Star Trek was about to go. It was about to be gone. And then here comes the Wrath of Khan. And this movie knocks it out of the park. Incredible performances. Great action, too, by the way, in this movie. It does really well with the action. Visually, it's really, really well done. And this movie will quite literally probably save Star Trek as a whole. Because if this movie didn't exist, we wouldn't have the J.J. Abrams movies that all the Star Trek fans love. We wouldn't have maybe your movie. We wouldn't have, the future shows and the other series and whatnot. This movie was super important. It had to deliver, and there was a lot of pressure on it, and it really did a bold thing by killing Spock off. That was something that, yeah, if you don't do that, whatever. People wouldn't be shocked. Everybody expects Spock to live, but killing him is something that not only shocked a lot of people, it really was something that some people are like, oh no, I love Spock. It really changed it. It changed the game, not just for Star Trek, but for a lot of movies in general. I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
All right, Matt yielding the rest of his 10 seconds, using 10 seconds to roast JD. Bold strategy. Again, we're going to see how that pays off. 4 minutes on the clock. This is for both of y'all. Time starts when someone starts.
I'll let you go first since I went first last time.
All right. So you mentioned a couple things I'm glad you brought up because I want to hit. You say this film saves Star Trek. Excuse me. Sorry, Star Trek. I corrected myself. You say this film saves Star Trek. It also ruined Star Trek too, because they wrote themselves into a narrative hole with this movie, and they wrote themselves into a narrative hole specifically with the death of Spock, which I'm also glad you brought up, because I'm going to be honest with you. There are two, as an outsider, even had never seen any of the Star Trek original films. There are two things I knew about this movie. I knew that Spock was going to die and then he was going to come back the next movie. And I knew that Kirk was going to have a son and he was going to die in the next movie. And you can't, a movie that is over 40 years old, you can't really, unfortunately, put this in a vacuum, especially when we're talking about the best film in the original series of film. You got to also bring the other films into this. And they had to bend, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because they even hint at his resurrection at the end of Spock. He should have just died. They should have kept him dead, and they should have gone forward with David Marcus's. I wanted to see Kirk as a dad. They should have kept with that. But now they hinted at the resurrection, and then they had to bend over backwards to bring him back. Which
thank you for mentioning that too, because real quick, because we probably have like 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Real quick though, I'm glad you mentioned that. They should have kept Spock dead, because I agree with you, because the voyage home brings him back and it ruins that plot point. It actually affected Star Trek negatively. I'm talking, let me finish my point. Had to do that once. I told Aaron I was going to do that once. But no, it definitely did ruin something part of Star Trek. But when you watch the movie on its own, when you watch The Wrath of Khan, that scene, that moment is still impactful. It kind of has like an Empire Strikes Back type thing where it's like, yeah, okay, here we are. We ended it. I didn't think it left in a hole, because it opened it up for an opportunity to continue going on. That Star Trek film actually took risks. What I didn't like about The Voyage Home was, not only they brought Spock back, but it was essentially a comedy. I don't need Star Trek to be that. If you don't want to be dark, fine, whatever. It doesn't have to be too dark, but
because we have a limited amount of time back, I want to get in here for a second. Number one of the things I really like about The Voyage Home is that it is a comedy. Like I do think that brought a bunch of interesting character dynamics, especially with like Chekhov and Scotty talking about aluminum, transparent aluminum. Like there are so many fascinating things about it being a comedy. Also, I generally wow, I lost my point. Good job. I lost my point. But as I said, I disagree that the death of Spock is that it works. It's 40 years somewhat since something. I couldn't, unfortunately, keep it in a vacuum. I don't think it works in hindsight as well as it does knowing that he comes back.
You could say the same thing about Vader. We all know Vader.
I remember what I wanted to say.
It still works.
Search for Spock was when Spock came back, not Voyage Home. I wanted to correct that.
And everything you just said we cannot use because it was after I called time. So with that, we are moving on to the closing. JD, since you started us off, you will have 1 minute to close us off. Time starts when you start talking.
Again, I just want to state for the record, he mentioned that Voyage Home was when Spock came back. It was actually Search for Spock. That being said, when I think of Star Trek, I think of this. I think of space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Star Trek Enterprise. Its mission to explore strange new worlds and to boldly go where no man has ever flown before. To me, no film has did that better than Star Trek The Voyage Home. Because to me, there's nothing more bolder than humpback whales. Going back in time to save humpback whales, and then the suspense not knowing that literally the fate of the human race in the 23rd century depends on what the humpback whales is going to say to the alien probe. I find that comedy-wise, that's funny, but then, existential-wise, I find that really interesting. Cede the rest of my time.
All right. With that, Matt, we are moving on to your 1 minute close. 1 minute to finish this up.
So to wrap things up quickly, one thing I really didn't like about The Voyage Home was the fact there really wasn't a villain, which resulted in it not feeling as tense. There was really no emotion. Yeah, you might laugh a little, ha ha ha, but really that's about it. You could really do. The premise is stupid with the whales. Like that's stupid. I don't care about the whales. Nobody cares about the damn whales. So I really didn't like the premise of the movie. I do feel Star Trek should have some action. You don't have to have a lot of it because you want to lean on the, intelligent side of things with sci-fi, sure, but a little action wouldn't hurt. And this movie really didn't have any action. If they did, it was very little. But with the Wrath of Khan, an incredible villain, one of the best sci-fi villains of all time, with an incredible performance by Ricardo Montalban, whatever. Great action in the movie, very well shot. Again, like I said, iconic scenes like Khan was in there, and it takes risks by killing Spock. That's a big risk. It really does. And yes,
time. All right. So with that, I'm going to kick Matt and JD out. Bring back in Chad, Haven, and Stacy. I was about to say, for those at home, I did add Haven in. He just had his camera off at the second. Real quick, I'm going to give you all some time to think about who's getting your point and why. While y'all are thinking, I have some more facts. First off, Khan is played by Ricardo Montalban. Matt, learn his name, say it correctly. He is a treasure. Star Trek: The Original Series, which was a television show that came out in 1966, lasted for 3 seasons. It was canceled in 1969. Then the first Star Trek film featuring the same crew came out, I believe, 1979. I did not look at it. David Marcus is Captain Kirk's son. He is revealed in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and is later killed in The Search for Spock, which is also where Spock comes back. JD, you did correct that in your closing. Thank you so much for that. And then just going on with what JD said, when the film came out, no one knew Spock was going to die or that Captain Kirk had a son. The fact that you are 40 years younger than this film just works for you, I guess. So with that, we will go ahead and get into the judging. Haven, we're going to start off with you. Who gets your vote and why?
This time around, I'm gonna go with JD. You know, he made a lot of good points about this is the first film that you actually see like the world building, you know, the Starfleet, you know, when the crew, you know, is getting selected, you know, you can see they're like in awe of all the mechanics in the ship going back in time. Cisco, he had a lot of points. I think Matt just played it easy, you know, just kept bringing up Khan. We know Khan is great, but you know, he couldn't say the actor's name. So this time around, I'm giving it to JD.
All right, so JD getting the first vote. Stacy, we're moving on to you. I told you we would let you talk this time. Please tell me who gets your vote and why.
Well, I haven't watched any Star Trek movies, so this is based purely on arguments. And it's going to Matt because he said the one most important thing that I bought, and that was that without Khan, we might not have the modern Star Trek series, and without 2009 Star Trek, Chris Hemsworth might still be in Australia. And that's the only thing that matters here to me. So, Matt gets the vote.
Had you have told me that before, I would have fact-checked it if Chris Hemsworth would be in Australia without this. But since you didn't, I cannot fact-check that. But we are at a 1-1 tie. Chad, break this tie. Give us a victor. Who is winning this point?
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to give it to Matt. And the reason being, JD was very passionate about his movie. That's great. I haven't seen that one. I have seen Khan. And I think what Matt said about Khan being a movie that brings in like non-Star Trek fans like him really rang true for me. He also brought up a lot of great points about Khan being a perfect villain. When Spock dies, it's super iconic. And it was a bold move too, and it was very similar to Empire Strikes Back, which is also a very beloved movie. He said that The Voyage Home was too comedic, which I think was a good shot against JD's movie. And then there's no real villain or emotion in Voyage Home. The premise of the whales is stupid, and then the action is way better in Khan. So he totally sold me on that movie.
All right, so with that, Matt gets the point. He is up 2-0 as that ticker shows. I'm going to kick everyone in the back and just say, JD, you lost my vote when you brought up Voyage Home was a comedy and did not bring up Chekhov running around a nuclear base, a military base. I'm looking for the nuclear vessels the entire time.
If I knew,
best comedic moments.
If I knew that if The Wrath of Khan wasn't great and it would have caused the new Star Trek movies and that would have resulted in Chris Hemsworth still being in Australia, I would have really hammered that in because that really would have been the crime at the end of the day.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. It really does not matter because you did get the point regardless. Yeah. We will move on to question number 3. We've talked about Ben Affleck. We've talked about Star Trek. So we're in some lows. Let's get into some highs, which you have to be high to watch these. Just kidding, Aaron. Please do not cut that. We're talking about musicals. And my question for you, what is the best musical of all time? Matt, you will be starting us off with this one. 1 minute on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Look, I don't think anybody should disagree with this statement. The answer for best musical all time is Singing in the Rain. I think that is the obvious choice. I mean, if you go up to, anybody down the road and say, hey, what's the best musical you've seen? They're going to say Singing in the Rain. This movie's absolutely iconic. Has the most iconic song from a musical in it. Singing in the Rain. And if we're going to be specific, that's the title of the movie too. No, absolutely love this movie. Gene Kelly gives his best performance in this movie for sure. And it might even be the best performance that anybody gives in a musical, period. It's absolutely wonderful. His chemistry with Debbie Reynolds is absolutely perfect in this movie. It's a nice movie, has a wonderful story. I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
You had 10 seconds left.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, with that, JD, 1 minute on the clock to open up your argument. Time starts when you start talking.
So, I also chose a Gene Kelly movie. It's also very iconic. You can see this directly in La La Land from a couple years ago. I'm choosing An American in Paris. And the reason I'm choosing An American in Paris is because, to me, this film is unique when it comes to musicals. I like musicals. I don't love musicals. And to me, this film did something unique, especially with musicals with that time, which is I actually like every single one of the characters in the movie. And I actually, it makes sense that, the romance between Gene Kelly and Lena. I'm going to see the rest of my time. I need to rethink real quick.
All right. So we have Singing in the Rain, An American in Paris. Two very similar films because they both include singing. But Matt, we are moving on to you with your 2-minute section. 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you start.
Okay, so I do want to say, I think the actress you were thinking of, you were talking about the French actress, is Leslie Conan. I could be wrong. I believe that's her name. If that's who you're talking about. But anyway, Gene Kelly and Debbie Ryan in this movie have pitch perfect cue Anna Kendrick, chemistry in this movie. They're absolutely wonderful together. I didn't really, buy the chemistry between some of the people in American in Paris. I'll get into more of that later. I don't want to dig into that, but Gene Kelly and Stanley Donen, they do a fantastic job directing this movie. I think that really does help this film, and I like the story in this film. It's a very important story in a way where it's about Hollywood transitioning from the silent film era completely out of that and going to a whole new sound type of era that we're in right now. I'm going to yield the rest of my time. Jacob, this probably hasn't even been a minute, but I'm going to yield it.
You had 1 minute 4 seconds left, but it does not matter. JD, 2 minutes on the clock. It starts when you start.
See, he doesn't want to go into it, but this is my main kind of why I prefer an American in Paris and Singing Rain is because I buy the chemistry of all the characters. I just loved a rectangle, if you will. Like, I felt bad at the end for every single one of these characters. Like, I generally have a problem with musicals when I feel like the romance is forced. And honestly, in Singing in the Rain, I feel like the romance is forced. I'm going to get into that later, but I buy Gene Kelly and Colbert. I buy Henry, the character's name is, who Lisa is, the kind of third wheel, the fourth wheel, if you will, of this triangle. The music is really great, and Singing in the Rain takes a lot from American in Paris, which is another kind of problem that I have. In some ways, forcing it in and Americanizing it, whereas I feel like it's natural. I'm going to get into that in the open debate.
Are you conceding your remaining 40 seconds?
Yeah, I'm conceding the rest of my 30 seconds because
Thank you. All right, so we have done the first 3 minutes. Now we're moving on to the 4-minute section. This is for both of y'all, just like every other 4-minute section. It starts when one of you starts talking.
All right. Now, I didn't want to get into it believe it was the chemistry at first because I didn't want to just attack the movie and the rebuttal part of it. So just making that clear. But I'll get into it now. I bought the chemistry a lot more in Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds than I bought it in An American in Paris with Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron. I thought their chemistry was fine in American in Paris, but really that wasn't anything that made me go, wow, I totally buy these people together. And
See,
really the acting I didn't like all too well either outside of Gene Kelly. I thought everybody else was fine.
See, I think the chemistry between Leslie Cohen and Gene Kelly is amazing. I bought every second of it, especially when they're talking about on the lake about why she has to go with Henry, like she feels like an owed debt to him. I buy that chemistry. I also Henry. The problem I have with Singing in the Rain is the third wheel of the romance. The actress that you could. I'm sure one of your counter arguments is going to be, well, Gene Kelly's character never had any interest in her, which you would be right, but I don't know why she was interested in him. Like that was like I was just like that was just forced so you could have a love triangle of some sort. Even if it's just one-sided, it's still a love triangle. I also generally the Broadway melody sequence, again, they're taking that sequence that's a straight out of the ballet sequence from An American in Paris, which is completely natural and comes at a moment of despair where it's like they saw that in Singing in the Rain and how much acclaim it got, and then they're like, oh, we can have that in Singing in the Rain.
So, the reason why Gene Kelly, the reason why she was into Gene Kelly and Singing in the Rain was because Gene Kelly was in the movie an actor, a very good actor, and she wanted to have that whole Hollywood power couple type thing. That's really the main thing that drove her love. And yes, did Singing in the Rain take some things from An American in Paris? Sure, it took some things. But just because you take things from one movie doesn't mean that's a bad thing. Sometimes when you borrow things from a movie, you do it better than the movie you borrowed it from. I mean, look at Star Wars, for example.
Yeah, but
that's not really that not really that original in a sense. It took things from other movies, but we all love Star Wars. We all think it's a near perfect movie. So just because you take things from a movie doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Sometimes,
sometimes, but it depends on if they actually do it better, which I just don't think that they do. There's a lot of like with that character. There's a lot of contradiction. Like, yes, she may seem. I bought that at one point, but then like there are other times where she completely hates him. Like as I said, the third wheel of it all. Whereas Henry, like. I think of the scene where they're talking about Henry and Gene Kelly's character. Like they're talking about how, the problem is not if you're in love with somebody. It's the problem with if somebody is in love, if she, they ask, does she love Leslie? And he says yes. And does she love him? And he's like, and Henry's like, the problem is when you're not in love. That's when she's not at the third triangle when it's not above. Then you have to. That's where the problem lies. And I just, I never got anything close to that in Singing in the Rain.
Time. All right, we are moving on to the closing section. Matt, you started us off, so you will start off the closing section. 1 minute to wrap up your argument. Time starts when you start.
So to get to the love triangle thing, I didn't really see it as a love triangle in An American in Paris because he wasn't into both of the ladies, right? Because usually the guy in the middle is, if it's a love triangle, the person in the middle is attracted to both. And, it depends, I hate the series, but Twilight, there's a love triangle there. She's into both guys. This movie, he's not. So I don't really think of that as a love triangle. To me, I think the love triangle when they all love each other, and that just wasn't the case at all. To me, the story of this movie, An American in Paris, is just basic. It wasn't anything that made me go, okay, this is a fantastic movie. It's just like, I'm a guy, and I paint stuff. Oh, I want to buy your paintings. Okay, I'm in Paris. Haha, there's a girl I like, and that's it. But with Singing in the Rain, it's a story about Hollywood and this important transition from the silent film to the non-silent film, and it has a bunch of different aspects in the movie too, which adds to the movie. And plus, we're talking about musicals, has better music.
Time. All right, so with that, JD, we are going to move on to your 1 minute close, because that's what round this is. And Aaron, I will remember to turn my camera off this time. JD, 1 minute, close this out. Time starts when you do.
Getting back to the rough rectangle of it all, I do think there was actually interest on like all four sides. Actually, it's just that it was just love that you get the feeling that like Gene Kelly's character would have been happy with the other character if he hadn't met Leslie. That's just same thing with Leslie with Henry. Like they would have been happy if they hadn't met each other, but they just happened to meet each other. That's kind of like the difference. And the music, to me, the music, there is a lot of iconic music. This Is Rhythm is a great song. I constantly think of, and Like Klaus is another great song. So I disagree. In the ballet sequence, everybody has seen it. La La Land uses it for its finale directly. So I disagree with the iconic.
Time. All right. So we will kick JD and Matt out of here. Bye, everybody. I will get Chad, Haven, and Stacy back in. Haven is here. His camera is off, just so y'all are aware. And there he actually is. Just quick kind of facts. Her name is Leslie Caron. There were a couple mispronunciations of her name, but we did finally get it right at the end. And then the song's In an American in Paris. The song is I Got Rhythm. I don't remember what the person said, but it was not that. As far as love triangles and rectangles go, I cannot talk about that because those aren't facts and just opinions people have of the movies. So with that, Stacy, we're going to go ahead and start off with you. Who gets your point and why?
I actually went back and forth a lot on this because they were really focused on chemistry and love triangles, and I haven't seen either movie, so I didn't really have an opinion on who was right about those things. In the end, a couple of things that swayed me was JD said something about he didn't believe a love triangle because half the time the woman hated Gene Kelly. I think he was talking about Singing in the Rain. As a woman who sometimes very much hates people that I'm very much into, that's not factual at all. That doesn't affect a love triangle. But he did make some good points about their chemistry with specific scenes and stuff. But then Matt kind of won me with pointing out how iconic Singing in the Rain is and that it has the better music. So Matt gets the point. Sorry, that was wordy.
Matt gets your point. And just to clarify, you do say that occasionally women hate guys that they have a crush on?
Yes, they do.
Okay, as soon as we're done with this,
very thin line between love and hate.
Right
very
now.
Thin.
All right. So with that, Chad, who gets your vote and why?
Yeah, this was a very hard. I agree very much so with Stacy. They were focused way too much on like one specific aspect of each movie, and it was like very hard to try to pull. They were both swaying me a little bit. But I actually had to go with JD this time. And the reason I did is just because he directly said that American in Paris or Singing in the Rain basically copied off of An American in Paris so much with specific scenes like the Broadway melody is a direct copy from the ballet part of An American in Paris. And I haven't even seen An American in Paris, but I've heard this before. And then he also said that La La Land has even used stuff from An American in Paris, which I thought was a really great point because it's maybe Singing in the Rain's iconic, but An American in Paris still has its appeal today as well. So JD sold me with that. And he also was naming a lot of the songs in the movie, and I don't think Matt really did that, even though he did throw in the music was great in Singing in the Rain.
All right. Hey, then we will go ahead and go on to you because we are tied 1-1. Who gets this point?
Yeah, they both kind of stuck on the relationships. I mean, some of them butchered some names of the actresses. Um, I'm gonna have to give it. At the end of the day, I'm gonna give it to Matt. He just was able to talk more shit. He just brung up, the iconic scene, with the whole title, the premise when Gene Kelly, he brung up the Hollywood, he brung up the storyline, he brung up why, the movie, why it was relevant, why it took place in Hollywood, what was going on in the movie, why the third wheel was attracted to him, but he wasn't attracted to her. He never, Gene Kelly never gave her any reason to be infatuated with him. He wasn't two-timing or anything like that. So at the end of the day, JD played really well. I think he just stumbled a couple rounds. I think if he would have just had his facts a little better and was a little stronger in some of the arguments, I think he would have kicked some ass. But at this time, I have to give it to Matt.
All right, so Matt is getting the third point. I'm going to go ahead and kick everyone back. It looks like, and your winner by way of knockout, Matt Beer. Get him. Or I will have to do this, I guess. There we go.
There we go.
Matt, congratulations on the win. You got the knockout, which is always kind of exciting to do. We've had 2 so far, I believe, and you are the third one to successfully do it. So how are you feeling after that one?
I feel good. That has to mean technically I'm the third best person in the league, so I'll take that. I really will. But no, feel good about it. JD I thought played well today. I know he maybe he wasn't awake at the last one. I think he's a little more tired or whatever, but I thought in the third question, he did really good. Honestly, that was the one where I really felt the heat the most, was in that third question. I thought he did really good overall though. But yeah, look, I'm not the greatest at this. I get that, it's fine. But my next plan is to go in, and whoever I face off against, I don't know who it's going to be, I plan on taking care of them.
Yeah. So just so you're aware, just because you are the third person to reach a knockout does not mean you are the third best player in Movie Battleground. Fun fact, I will date this video. I do not care. It is week 1 of the NFL. The Houston Texans destroyed the Jacksonville Jaguars. That does not mean the Houston Texans are in the top half of the league. Right now they are, but that 100% does not mean that they are.
I'm going to continue the pile on real quickly and interject because my internet has stabilized for a second. Matt, you're also the only person with a knockout with a loss to your name, so let's cool it down a little bit there, bud.
I mean, look, with a loss and a knockout, I mean, come on. I'm the only person, unless somebody does it, that's in the 0-1 bracket, that has been 0-1, and I will have a knockout. That's going to stay in history, baby.
It might. We'll see further on down the road. But with that, because we are currently on the 0-1 bracket, with this win, it does mean you will move on to the next round. As I find out who you are playing a gentleman who took on a champion in one of our debate leagues and almost won, but did not finish it up. You are taking on Andy Sweet. How do you feel after I say that name?
Who would I face in the third round? Very curious who I'm going to face in the third round. Because look, Andy, I get it. You're probably sweet. You're probably a sweet person. But at the end of the day, look, fine. I haven't seen your match yet, so who knows? Maybe you're incredible. But I'm going to kick your ass. It's just facts. And look, I didn't study in this game at all, in this match. So if I study a little bit, probably knock you out.
Definitely, I love the trash talk. Matt also happens to be one of the veterans in the 0-1 bracket.
Yes.
The only one who actually took on another veteran. We'll look at the other veteran later on down the road. We will not say his name because he is a failure at life. But with that, Matt, I will kick you in the back, and I bring in our unfortunate second place finisher, JD Domash. JD, you didn't get the win, but I will say, from the little bit that I was actually paying attention, false, I paid attention during the entirety of it that I was involved in. It was very back and forth. The 0-3 score does not say anything about the performance, because again, it was very back and forth. The last two were split decisions. That first one wasn't, but we never know because we don't know what Stacey was going to go. But how are you feeling after that one?
It's fine. I'm going to be honest. I did not study at all either. I'm a very busy guy work-wise, so it just finding me I'm having less and less time to focus on as much as I want to. So it is what it is. The last round, I was just done. Which is
I definitely know that thought. Debate can be very stressful at times, and especially when you get to the very end. Your brain is just hurting and you're ready for it all to be over. But I do want to congratulate you for sticking it to the end. I know quitting at that third question is always a possibility, but you did stick it out. I do want to commend you. However, since you are currently 0-2, it will be a while before we see you, but I just want to say, on behalf of every showrunner in Movie Battleground and producer, we would love to see you again. I'm going to go ahead and kick you out, though. As I finish up with just me, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, feel free to hit that little thumbs up button. It's one that looks like this. Also hit that subscribe because we throw out a lot of great content. I was about to say daily, pretty close to daily. We have not just the Movie Battleground, but also random shows about all topics. But for our competitors, Matt and JD, and then for our judges, Chad, Haven, and Stacy, thank you. Y'all have a good one. Stay safe. Or don't. I really don't care. I'm not your dad. But I could be your papa.